Is it sustainable to think in the way of having to convert and bring back? And if you look at the Lemba, they don't even want to convert. They said, why are we converting to something we're already part of? So it's really important now to bring in the writings of our sages, because we have a consensus for about 3,000 years passed on that everyone agrees on what will happen in the future times when this great awakening happens. What will happen in the future times when this great awakening happens? What will happen in the future times when this great awakening happens?
The point being, around the world, this prophecy started unfolding before our eyes. The awakening and the return of Israel. It's the awakening and the return of Israel. It's the awakening and the return of Israel. Because it says in the days of Messiah, so now we go through the prophets here, and we get to the book of Ezekiel in 36 and 37, the dead bones of Israel come back to life. And in 36 and 37, it says, in the days the Messiah returns, both sticks, Judah and Ephraim, are joined in his hand. So then we get to the New Testament, and it talks about the Jews and the Gentiles, but those Gentiles were returning Israel. Read Peter's address, he says, to the dispersed of Israel, or to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, and James says the same. So this story of the Bible, guys, there was no change of the law at the middle day. It was a continuation of the story of restoration.
On right now is what I call the Great Awakening. And what is a Great Awakening? It's realizing that we've been lied to quite a bit when it comes to a certain state and a certain group of people from the Middle East, even though they're not really from the Middle East, if you know what I'm saying. This situation is getting mainstream attention. A topic that typically would get you banned everywhere is now exploding, absolutely exploding in awareness.
Ezekiel 37 tells us something. It tells us how the Most High would awaken his children spiritually first, and then later on physically. You see, right now, there's an awakening that's taking place. Yasharel, we are awake now. He said that he would take our prophets and seers away. He said that he would make us drunk without strong wine. But we are no longer that. Right now, we're standing up bold in this Torah. Right now is not the time to be going back to perdition. Right now is not the time to be going back around individuals who he separated you from, who aren't good for you in your life. Going out clubbing, partying, being drunk all the time, smoking all the time. Because not understanding is that you're defiling your temple. Did he not say to be sober so that you can use discernment and know the times that you're living in? Or not understanding that you're eating defiled food. Leviticus 11 tells us what he said was clean. So if you're doing all of these things, how can the Holy Spirit dwell inside of you? Do you not understand that you are the temple? Acts 17:24. He does not dwell in these other places built with men's hands. Because the strong delusion is this, is that everyone thinks that they're going to partake in this covenant. Everyone thinks that they're going to be gathered. They say, come as who you are. He loves everyone. My question is, what book are you reading? Because scripture tells you straight away that the sinners, the wicked, are going to be destroyed. Scripture tells you straight away there's a righteous remnant. Scripture tells you straight away that he only wants the best fruit in his kingdom.
Wake up! Berean Scholar. Berean Scholar. Waking up the people of the Most High. I got the knowledge to destroy the lies. DNA history, open eyes. Walk into the darkness and turn on the lights. Wake up, 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 wake up.
Thank you for coming and visiting Berean Scholar YouTube channel. I'm honored every time you come and visit us. This is the Great Awakening, and I got an opportunity to meet another sister of BatYah, the family of the Most High. Yes, Yasharel is big and growing bigger every day. Sister Lydia, how you doing?
Doing okay. Doing well today.
Guys, me and Sister Lydia and her husband, we got the chance to meet each other on a Pasach service. We shared a Pasach service in Virginia at PFR, Passion for Reconciliation, It was glorious. I had a great time. I mean, it was a great time giving with the people of the Most High. What, did you think so, Sister Lydia?
I was in awe. It was
Yes.
a real blessing, something I have been waiting a long time to experience.
Yes, yes, yes. I was also.
I'm excited.
You and I talked offline before about how the experience was something different for you, and I shared with you my first experience. But let's talk about it again. The being with people, being with people that are like-minded, that know who they are, have their identity, and wanting to worship the Most High. That was a movement spirit for me. How was it for you?
That's a good way of wording what I felt that I was experiencing. Um, it could look like it could appear like just another church event, but the spirit about it was different. It was calming, it was peaceful, it was joyful, and
Yes,
it was holy.
yes.
You
Holy. I
feel like,
like that.
yeah,
Holy, set apart. Good
yes,
word. Yes, good word. And maybe because it's holy, because it wasn't a church. It was a assembly of believers or witnesses who wanted to get away from religion, and in fact, there were people there who wasn't from Pastor Richardson Church. I met a brother and his wife and his kids from Florida, who
uh-huh,
was Haiti was Haitians. I met people from New York, people from Boston, people from out west, far out west, and it was a great time.
it sure was. It sure
And
was.
we talked also about your journey in looking to find out how to honor the feast days.
Yes, it's before my awakening. I, I wanted to get some understanding, get deeper understanding about some of the events happening in the Bible. And so occasionally I would visit the Messianic synagogue here in the Philadelphia area. And it it had a positive impact at first because it helped me to look at, like, for example, the story of Esther, from the perspective of the people who were actually at risk of losing their lives, when the rabbi at the end was saying, if Esther hadn't been willing to risk her life, that none of us would be here. That's the kind of thing he said. And I thought that was really really had an impact on looking at the scripture that way and starting to, read it that way. This is history of some real people that exist now, that, and that um, we should look at it more closely like that, rather than
Yeah.
just a story out of any fairy tale.
And you said that was before your awakening, right?
This was before my awakening.
So
Yes.
when you awaken and you realize the story answer about your people.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh, so yeah, I do have a little tradition of my own now, that when it's time for that, and you told me the correct name, was it Purim?
Oh, Purim.
Um,
Yeah, they were doing Purim. Yeah.
yeah, there's actually a video out there on it's not on YouTube. I can't remember the name of the other resource, where someone had produced a video about that story with an all black cast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I make sure I pull that up and watch it each time. And the story, of course, there's details in the story that start standing out more when I'm looking at it from the perspective that these were my people.
My people.
And some of those details of things that Haman was thinking and saying, it reminds me of life here. What our people
Yeah.
been through here, right here in
Come
America.
on, come on. Haman
Yep.
was trying to plot to get rid of all our people, and he was buttering up with the king.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, it wasn't for Esther being in the right place at the right place. It's sort of the same thing with Nehemiah being in the right place in the right time.
Exactly. Nehemiah, Daniel, Joseph.
Yes.
That's,
And what are the common thread of all three of them? Nehemiah, Daniel, Joseph, and Esther.
Well,
They were,
it goes to, I mean, it just kind of snapped to me when you were talking the event you did just a few minutes ago, that our people, throughout that history, our people wound up in political positions.
yeah,
Um, and that played a role in how things were, a big role in how things would come out for the Israelites. Um,
and wow, wow.
you
So
know,
you just said something else. Well, yeah, you're right. Our people were in position with in power, and they were not necessarily part of them, but they was in position that they could affect power. You're right.
they could influence, right, right. I love that story out of the Apocrypha of when Daniel proved to the king that that idol was just an idol,
Yes,
and had the idol wasn't eating
he
that
wasn't eating that food.
he wasn't eating that food. His own people were playing a big trick on him,
Yeah,
his
the
own
pre
people.
the priest of his priest was going behind his back and coming through trap doors, eating the food at night with their families. And yeah, you're right.
Yep.
That's a good story. And that's why we need to both pour ourselves in. There's so much when you read when I said the Torah, and I had to correct somebody in one of my chat. The Torah is the first five books of the Bible, and I know
Right.
that other people that we're not mentioning their names right now, when they say Torah, they talk about the Torah plus some other books, some oral Torah they call it. I'm not gonna get into all that on this thing,
Wow.
but when you talk about the word of the Most High, stories like that, they're rich, and there's some they show us, number one, how stiff-necked we are, but
Yes.
how loving our Father is.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So you share with me that you're raised in the Philadelphia area, and how y'all got there.
Oh, how you mean how my
How your
parents wound up?
peoples?
How my
Yes.
people wound up in Philly? Yes, because I assume that it was that in the early 1900s, 1920s, when they deceived the people living in the South, that when they came up here they would be able to find jobs. What was that called?
The Great Migration.
The Great Migration. Yeah, I'm assuming that that's how my mother's, what motivated my mother's people to come up
By
here
night, Americans
from
left the
South
Jim Crow
Carolina.
South in two waves. One from around 1910 through 1940, and another from 1940 to 1970. It was one of the largest domestic migrations in American history. You see, in 1910, most Black Americans lived in the South, 90% in fact. And this makes a lot of sense because most of slavery had been centered in the South. And even after the emancipation of enslaved Black Americans, many folks stayed in the same areas where they had previously lived. But by 1940, around 1.5 million Black Americans had left their homes. And that percentage of Black Americans in the South had dropped to 77%. And by 1970, that number would drop to 52%. They mostly went to cities like Chicago, Illinois, Detroit, Michigan, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and New York City. In my own family, we had a lot of people leave New Orleans and actually move out to the West Coast, settling in and around Los Angeles.
To come up here from South Carolina, and my father's people to come up here from Virginia, Maryland. Really, they always tell me they're from Maryland. I always think they're from Virginia, but they say Maryland. And that thinking back on it, of the kind of jobs that each of my grandfathers wound up with, it's similar things still happening, where the people wind up with they wind up with a job, but it's not going to be oftentimes a low paying job, like working at, you can't even get the job. I can't, our people can barely, for a while, couldn't even get a job of driving a taxi cab. I mean, there's other ways to do it now, but working in a garage or working in a restaurant in the kitchen and stuff like that, security guards.
So your folks ended up in Philadelphia, and your family, you say you came from a big family?
Yeah, my mother's family was a large family. My father's family was a large family. At least 9 or 10 on each side. So
Oh, well, that was common in the South.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it made sense when you're trying to live on, trying to do farming and things like that. You need a big family.
And that was one of the reasons why the Great Migration would happen, because people would try to get away from the farm and get away from the oppression that happened down south, because they were saying these people down south was hard, but like you're right, when they moved up north, they found out just a same thing, different area.
Different, yeah, just a different flavor of it. Yep, they just doing the same thing, just a little different way.
Well, how about your childhood? How do your personal family?
Growing up, my parents decided to put my brother and I in Christian school because of some of the things happening with the public school.
In Philadelphia?
Pardon me?
In Philadelphia.
Well, we were just outside of Philadelphia. We were in the suburbs. My parents wound up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, partly because my father was a veteran, so they were able to actually get a small house.
Wow.
Just outside of Philadelphia, which I know is a huge blessing, a rarity, because I've heard stories, a lot of veterans not being able to get that benefit.
Yeah. So he was one of the few vets that got a chance to get the GI Bill.
Got that benefit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so some things were, there is a documentary about that area that's in black and white. If I run across it again, I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
about how the news people came out to interview the people in the all white neighborhood about how they felt about black people being able to move out there. And they had a black family moving onto one of the actual streets that was an all white part of that township, which that documentary surprised me because, I grew up in that area and I knew that the area where black people lived, that's what, it was separated. You still had the same mailing, on the same township on your mailing address, but the white people lived over there and the black people lived over there. So I was really, that documentary, I was surprised to see any black person trying to move onto the same block with the white people. You just don't do that.
Now, I saw a documentary like that. I wanted the same one you're talking about.
Yeah, it might be because it came up on YouTube. It came up on YouTube not long ago.
And that's the area that you grew up in.
Yeah, I mean,
do you think a Negro family moving here will affect the community as a whole?
Definitely.
In what way?
I think that, the property values will immediately go down if they are allowed to move in here in any numbers.
Can you give a basis for that judgment?
Yes, we used to live in Washington, D.C., and we saw a very good example of that there.
The Myers family is close to the Levittown norm. They have 3 small children, the youngest only 1 month old. Myers served for 2.5 years in the Army and was discharged as a staff sergeant. He works as a laboratory technician and is studying for a degree as an electrical engineer. His wife, Daisy, is a college graduate. The Myers home is modestly furnished, and their late model family car was bought on time. They're very close to the Levittown norm, except in one respect. William Myers, Jr. and his family are Negroes in an all-white community. What other objections, aside from the effect on property values, do you have against the Myers?
The whole thing centers around the word integration. Well, as Mr. Myers said, because his home has been anything but peaceful since he moved in. He's got 3 children, and evidently he feels that they will be accepted socially. And I don't feel that they ever will be. But the whole trouble with this integration business is that in the end, it probably will end up with mixing socially. And you will have, I think their aim is mixed marriages and becoming equal with the whites.
What has been the effect of the Myers coming here?
Well, it's created a great deal of tension, not among the neighbors, because we all feel the same. But it's naturally made everyone tense in their home. I mean, this is affecting our homes. And it's bound to create tension. It's the subject that's talked about all the time.
But there are others who are for the Myers?
Yes, I've read about them.
For what reason, do you think, do they support the Myers?
frankly, I don't know what reasons they can have for it. If they are homeowners in Levittown, I don't see what reasons they can have for it.
Do you think Myers will be able to live here comfortably?
Comfortably? No.
What course of action are you going to follow?
I'll do what I can to help to get them out legally and peacefully.
Okay.
Man, you're right. Times, that's how people really thought about it. That's sort of the same thing I was doing on a live I just did. How some of us, as when we were in these other Christian groups, we wanted it to be like we all one people, but they didn't see us as being one.
Right.
So.
Right. They didn't see us as being people.
They did. Thank you. They didn't see us being people.
So
growing up, what are some things that caused you to realize, hey, something's different, something's wrong?
I think it's the experience of the Christian school, being in a Christian school, and having to be extra cautious about everything, more so than the other students. To have to be aware that sometimes your school teacher was going to be your enemy, not the person trying to increase your knowledge, but the person that is not happy, is unhappy that you're there. And if you need a little help here or there, they're not going to be the one to help you. Matter of fact, they'll be looking forward to, punishing you for something.
And this is from first grade up, right? You said from first grade up, right?
For me, it was second grade until 12th grade.
Still young.
And it was, it was an event, it was really, I do point out to people from time to time that, my brother and I were the only people of color in the elementary school, in the entire
class.
Elementary school. So it's not like,
I'm the
only
school.
Black person in class. I'm the only
in the entire school, not the
entire
class,
elementary school. Yeah.
Wow.
We were the only Black people in there. And so everybody's, I put it that way there, that, everybody had to go up the learning curve. I'm thankful for the headmaster and the principal who sat down with my parents at the beginning, as my parents were looking into it, and they understood it too, but they weren't like that. Fortunately, the principal and the headmaster of the school were not like that. They're both good, godly people. And so, they had a little meeting with my parents, and, it said, to let my parents know they'd be looking out for us. And if somebody went too far, to make sure that they let them know, and let them they would deal with it.
Wow. And this is at a Christian school.
Yes. And, eventually years later, as you start learning history from from some place other than a textbook, then I realized, you come to realize, yes, it's a Christian school, but some Christian schools were founded for reasons other than Christianity. That I can't swear that school started for that reason, but some of them did start for the sake of getting out of what happened with Martin Luther King, that they didn't want to be integrated. So that was a way of escape, at least for a little while.
Oh yeah.
Get your kids out of public school and found a Christian school founded based on religion. And, that
they
way
used the guise of religion to spark so-called Christian schools all over the South and some in the North.
Mm-hmm.
Just not for their Christian education, but to make sure they didn't have to go to school with you and I.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
While the landmark Brown v. Board decision in 1954 made school segregation illegal, it was clear that some southern districts would resist.
There would be certain counties throughout the South that would rather shut down their public schools than to integrate. And lo and behold, the next year, in Prince Edward County, Virginia, public schools were shut down.
The schools were locked and chained. Black leaders really had no way of knowing how long the schools would be closed.
They had a strategy where you could close the public schools, perpetuate segregation by running segregated academies, authorize that state funds be allocated in the form of vouchers.
In essence, the state was really supporting separate private school district only for white kids.
The first year, oh man, we ain't got to go to school. Okay, you enjoy it, but all of a sudden something began to click. Something is not right. The white children, they're going to school. Why I'm not going?
90% of Black children in this county did not receive a formal education during those years that schools were closed.
Went back to the farm, sharecropping with my dad and so forth. They kept having hope that school will open next month, next year. So here's where you're going to school in a little while, you're going in a little while, and that little while turned into 5 years. They ain't never had intended to open it up.
You know, what happened there, this sort of hidden history, sort of echoes what's happening throughout our country.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And you know, every time I see them put themselves through all that trouble, they're always depriving themselves of something. Yes. And that's when the thought crosses my mind. You can't truly believe that we're subhuman if you're going to go to that much trouble to get away from us or to keep or deprive us or to hide information from us. If you really believed we were part animal, it wouldn't be a problem for people to learn to reading, writing, and arithmetic for something that's part animal.
Right.
So, you know, it revealed some things to me. And I think I shared with you the other day that one of the things that stood out to me was that it proved to me that they really don't have a problem with brown skin, with the skin being brown. Because otherwise they wouldn't do what they, at least back then, I don't think they do it. I don't think many people do it now, but back then, go out to the beach to get a tan.
Oh, yes, they do.
Burn your skin.
Yes, they do.
I was puzzled when I was in school, and we come back from spring break or come in school in September after summer, and my classmates walking around proudly with their skin tanned, but also the skin peeling from being burned.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, how can you stick your nose up in the air and I'm too low to speak? You can't even speak to me. We're in the same class and you can't speak to me, but then you go out and try, from my perspective, you're trying to make yourself look like me.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
You know, that was, you know, it was a challenging experience, but I'm grateful that I had the experience because when it was time to get out of college and go function and try to keep a job somewhere, when some of these same things were happening, when people were, you know, trying to look for reasons, like when it was time to lay off somebody, you know which direction it would come.
You know how to navigate through it.
Right. And and to navigate through the interview and to be a little more picky with the job, you know, with which job you're going to realize I need to be paying attention to them at the job interview. Yes. Just as much as I need to be checking them out to decide whether it's worth it.
But when you grew up and you came out of the corporate world stuff, what brought you to this awakening?
I think, well, part of it had to do with the curse, with the quote, curse of Ham, unquote. I wanted to know why people like myself, African Americans, Black people, were going through some of the things that you and I were just discussing, and then even worse things, you know, with the police arresting and harassing people over nothing. People just literally just walking down the street, and the police grabbing them, having trouble getting a home, having trouble keeping a job, having trouble getting decent income. And the main part was people being put in prison over practically nothing. And so I was pleading with the Lord. I'm like, it looks like we're under a curse. And if we're under the curse of Ham, what do we have to do to be saved and freed from this curse? That's what I was researching for. Then I realized, once I, went to the Bible, there was no curse of Ham. Noah put a curse on Ham's son, Canaan.
Right.
So then that's where I wanted, okay, let me see. I had found out at some point that there were DNA tests. So am I a Canaanite was my next question. Am I under this curse of Canaan? The DNA tests were very expensive at that time. So I forgot about it for a while, but eventually, you know, the advertisement, you know, because it was like over $500, $1,000. It was expensive. It was out of my, you know, it was unaffordable.
Right.
But at some point, you know, I was talking about it with my husband. He heard me talking about it a number of times. So one year for a gift to me, he gave me a lump sum of money so that I was able to get multiple DNA tests done. Me, my father, one of my mother's sisters, and one of my mother's brothers, so that I could, you know, try to put the family tree together, but I also wanted to be able to trace back. And that's the other part. I wanted to be able to trace back and see our history before 1619. We didn't just poof come into existence. So where were we? Who were we? What were we doing? Why? You know, because I just had a hard time believing that these people came in to this land and had to chase around some people who were swinging from the trees to put them in a ship and have them come over here and build, you know, manage plantations, make big money for them, build buildings. That part didn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Why would you want to first, you know, you don't speak English, and then all you know how to do is swing from the trees like Tarzan. So why would you put yourself through that? Why would you go into that jungle and, you know, take a chance getting bit by something, you know? So that was the other part of the goal. There was also at some point, my husband and I occasionally go to the Creation Museum, and there was a display in there that helped me go a little further of the reality of what the Bible's saying, because they have a small work of art in there of Noah's Ark, and on that ark, it's not Noah's Ark, but it's a work of art of Noah and his wife, his 3 sons and their wives sitting together, you know, sitting around a table.
Right.
Every one of Noah's sons in that display is brown skin and woolly hair.
Oh, now, where's this display at? The one down in
Creation
Florida?
Museum in
Florida?
in Kentucky.
In Kentucky. Oh, yeah, in Kentucky. The one
You've heard of Creation Museum.
Ken Hand.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he's one of, you know, because we've heard him speak in some of those the conference he's given, you know, one of his motives was that, okay, this segregation stuff, it's not logic. We shouldn't be like that. He said his book is called, what's the name of his book, Steve? One Race? One, yeah. In other words, from his perspective, race, we're misusing that word race. He's saying there's only one, you know, there's the human race. We should be looking at human race. Variations in our color of skin and texture of hair shouldn't be changing what race we are. There's other more correct terms for that part.
Right. And Ken Ham was the creationist from who started it. Let's hear from Ken Ham himself, okay? Let's hear from him.
But anyway, so question, what shade, not what color, was Adam and Eve's skin? If Adam and Eve had all little A's and little b's, the whole world would be that. But if Adam and Eve had all big A's and big b's, the whole world would be that. But that lacks the genetic variability we see. It makes much more sense that Adam and Eve are in the middle brown, and from 2 middle brown people, you can get people who are lighter than the parents, people who are darker than the parents. That's very, very easy to understand. There's lots of families like that. You go to Florida, California, you see a lot of families like that. Kids darker than the parents and lighter than the parents. And you see, because of the Tower of Babel, if some people in some groups, because of who married who died out, who was left, who was isolated from who, if they ended up with only big A's and big B's on their own, they're only going to produce dark-skinned people. If they ended up with only little A's and little B's on their own, they're only going to produce light-skinned people. Remember, poodles, with poodles only give poodles, right? These would have to mix back with others to get back the genetic diversity that was already there, to not have just light skin anymore, but to produce people with different shades. It's the same.
Now, Ken Ham, I listened to I see, I had that video. I didn't know you were going to bring him up. but I thought it was funny that he used that theory, and it shows that we had to come from dark-skinned people.
Right.
But even his chart made the dark skin a little lighter than he really was, because
Correct.
I thought it was funny that Christian people, Ken Ham, would admit that yes, we had to be dark skinned, but it wasn't that dark. But if you compare what other people said, like this guy.
I picture him very much alive and with a lot of the basic feelings that we have today. Confidence one point, insecurity at another.
Finally, Wells comes face to face with the man he's been searching for. A new portrait of the common ancestor of every man today. Adam. Without the skull, we can't know for sure what Adam looked like. But a combination of genetic evidence, vendors' forensic skills, and cutting-edge computer software suggests he looked something like this. Thousands of years after the Bible, and hundreds of years after Michelangelo, we have a whole new face for Adam.
Professor Rebecca Kahn was the pioneering scientist who uncovered the first all-important clue.
I started working on human mitochondrial DNA so that I would have some kind of view that was objective, that would help me understand and help other people understand how humans around the world were related. I was very excited when I first started to get evidence, and it was so counterintuitive. I'd put 20 Europeans and 20 African Americans on a sheet of X-ray film, and every African American showed differences, and all the Europeans looked the same. As we got more samples from different areas, I realized that it was a difference in the pattern, and that this whole new type of evidence based on mitochondria was going to change the way we thought about modern humans.
In 1987, Kahn and her colleagues published a paper showing for the first time that the markers stretched back to Africa, showing quite clearly that this was the birthplace of the human race. New Guinean tribesman, Parisian bartender, American teacher, Polynesian farmer, all were improbable relatives linked through one black woman 150,000 years ago. Their findings caused a sensation. And this is what she looked like. Using forensic reconstruction techniques, muscle and flesh have been added to the skull and provide us with the very first glimpse of how our genetic mother might have looked 150,000 years ago.
Now, both of them was dark-skinned people.
That's right.
And that was Rebecca Kahn from I think Hawaii University, and Spencer Wells, and the first one talking about Adam. Both of them doing their reconstruction saw dark-skinned people, but when he came to a Christian person, he had to lighten them up a little bit.
Well, I do notice that. I've noticed it, especially when you first go into the museum. Those images that you saw, they're going to be the wax figures in the jungle, in the Eden there.
Right.
But I do like to point out the other special sculpture that's somewhere in there. I don't know exactly where it is now. They move it from place to place sometimes. Business major, you got to think about the resources.
Right. He had to get money.
Exactly. You got to have donors. And if I just can't imagine at that time, and given even the stuff you talked about today, of how other churches and other organizations, college professors, etc., I can't imagine them donating back to, my experience in the Christian school.
Yeah, you're
If
right.
the cat, if they, even though you should be, if you're a scientist, you should be wanting facts, not fiction, but that's just the way it is in America.
Well, and
So
that's funny. If he was going for science in in fact, what year was that when you went? What year is that when you went to the Creation Museum?
I'm thinking, let's see, I'm thinking probably we've gone more than once. So our first time was probably about 2012.
Okay,
Yeah,
2012.
2012.
2012.
Yeah,
Now, the
and
video I just
then
showed you, from Spencer Webb was put out in 2002. So that information has been out there for a while.
wow,
The other video I showed you from Rebecca
yeah,
Crumb was done around the same time.
yeah,
And I have three other videos, other scientists around the same time who's found out the same information, like a group of scientists found out that the first European, they were dark skinned, or the professor, I forgot his name, from Japan, found the first Japan, well, they didn't know, professor from India. And so the information was there in the academia, but
right,
nobody was talking about it.
exactly. And I know that, like I said, I know that they were aware of it, because
Yeah.
when he was giving his lectures, I don't know why he makes that particular chart like that, but I know I've heard them say it. They know. So, but like I said, from my perspective, that might be part of the reason why he had to try to not push away the support, the funds, the founders, of
Right.
what's
He
on
didn't
their
want to lose
mind.
money. He didn't want to lose money.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to
Especially if he
keep it
had to
going.
give from the church, because that's where the problem came. When you give from church, they're the one that have more issues. But coming from that, so you found out that that the first man didn't look like what you've been told, and that
Exactly.
was a lie. Was that one of the first things that kept you finding that answer about the curse? And
Yes, that was the first one starting to free me from that. Because they explained it how, like they explained it scientifically that you can't go the other way.
Right.
That we could start with darker skin and then people can get lighter, but it doesn't
you don't go dark.
the other
You
way.
don't get light and get dark. You're right.
Right. So that set me free to a degree, but still trying to find out if we're descendants of Ham or if we're descendants of Shem, and we're even should check to see if you related to Japheth also. Okay, so that was what happened. Was a few years later, Steve and I went back again. At this point during the time I had started the DNA tests. So I don't remember exactly what this there was part of what I was doing in the subject of that conference. So the man who did the conference, he gave what he did was give an example of him being able to find his family tree back to the Bible, which was what I was trying to do. After he got some DNA tests, he had information from his parents, grandparents, etc., and was able to trace himself back to what tribe he came from in the Bible. Which of the Japhethians he was a descendant of. I got to talk to him after it, and I said to him, "Well, how am I supposed to trace back to who I came from, back to the Bible, if my people were brought here captive?" He looked me right in the eye and he said, "There's records out there. You'll be able to do it."
Oh.
And so,
amen.
It was on from there.
Amen.
Yep. And also, Ancestry.com, I called them about the same thing. Okay, you showed me this map and all this. Well, how do I go back further? How do I find out which tribe over in Nigeria? And they told me to start watching YouTube. Start watching YouTube stuff out there. And it exploded from there. I was really surprised at some of that video that I sent you that's like 3 hours long. That was one of the early ones that got it that got me assurance. Because many people were saying it, but he has that little part in his video has where he's explaining what it said on familytree.com.
Your haplogroup.
And then that I was able to find it myself. That was it.
So you were able to find your haplogroup and your father's haplogroup and your mother's haplogroup?
Like I said, for my mother, one of her sisters volunteered to let me do her DNA.
Okay.
And her brother, her baby brother, let me do his DNA. Mm-hmm. Because I wanted to get
and y'all had the same haplogroup, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both my father and my uncle were the same haplogroup. They both come out Limba.
Limba tribe.
Yep. And that's getting that far. Appreciation to We Woke Now and Brother Benai.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wouldn't have understood how to use those programs.
Yes.
Or understood how to read the results if they weren't constantly putting the sample or put the image up, explain it, put the image up, explain it. We could, of course it'd be nice to take a course somewhere, but this was more appropriate from my perspective for at the times we're living in, because that way I can learn, through YouTube if I'm willing to choose things that are going to enlighten me. I can learn no matter where I am or what I'm doing. I could be doing housework. I could be riding along, stuck in traffic somewhere, and learn something.
Because you were willing, you had a question. I wanted to know where I'm from. The curse of Ham? Nope. The curse of Canaan? Nope. Where am I from? Then you got the DNA test, and you went to class. You went to lectures, and he told you the records out there. Look at you, and you did what it takes to find.
Yeah.
Ask, seek, and knock. That's what you did.
Yeah, and you have to. At least I was aware that, because of my life experiences, Christian school, college, corporate world. When I went from out of the corporate world, I tried to get out of the corporate world, went into technology for a while. Then I wound up, once they started the desktop computer, that put me back into the corporate world. But, I think from my perspective, all of these things I experienced was preparation.
Yes.
It's preparation for the awakening. And so, finding out who the awesome part is when as I'm finding out who I am or who we are, who others around us are, is also being revealed.
Yes.
I keep telling my husband, remember that phrase from the Bible that the book was going to be open. Well, the book's been open.
Daniel said that the book of knowledge is going to increase and the book will be open. Yeah.
The book has been opened. And so, it's up to us whether we go around like this or whether we go ahead and take a deep breath. Take it in. Some of it's hard and harsh at first. But the truth, the truth is better than a fairy tale, because at least, even if it hurts, even if you don't like what you find out about yourself, at least at this point, you can go up from there. You know what I mean? It's better than walking around on a cloud, living a pretend life.
A fairy tale. I like that. The truth is better than a fairy tale. Are you right?
Oh yeah.
So since when you found out you were Limba, and found out through watching Brother BatYah and We Woke Now who Limba were, how did you feel?
Mm-hmm. That was, it was exciting.
Yeah,
it was very exciting. And I think I was describing to you or somebody recently that it's interesting that we came out mostly Limba because they're associated with the Levites, and it flashed into my mind the kinds of things that my mother and father and my aunts would do in church all the time. It's the kind of services that the Levites had to do for the Israelites, serving them food. From my perspective, for a little while at least, this stuff in the book of Leviticus. This reminded me of the African American cookout, the family reunion type of thing, where someone's got a grill out there and
Oh, now I understand what you're talking about. You was talking about when we were
Yeah.
talking earlier, how your family spent a lot of time in church serving and preparing and doing all how
Mm-hmm.
you was straightening out the cloth on the table and you saw,
Right.
yeah, because you're
Flower arrangements, ushering.
and
Usher. My
about
grandmother
being
was an
part of the
usher.
priesthood,
I was an usher.
preparing the house, the temple.
Singing on the choir,
Yes,
all
yes.
that stuff.
And that's why our folks excel in that. We always, that's one of the things I was, all the stuff we'll go through, all the things we'll see on TV and all, like you said, the news, you see people being shot down, all that. But we excelled at praise and worship. We excelled at being
Mm-hmm.
in church. Black Americans, the statistic of us being in church are higher than any other group.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, even the ones who are not in church still have a respect and an awe of the Most High.
They still do. No, I mean it
They might
is
not live it.
amazing. Go ahead.
They might not live it, but they have that respect.
Right. Right. And I have had encounters with people like that. Look like they were living and totally not believing in God, drinking, whatever, living
Yeah.
and partying and all that. A certain topic comes up and they'll still respect the Most High. They still respond with respect to the Most High. Remember those, I don't know about other people, but we were taught even when you walk, even if you walk past a funeral home, walk past the church, supposed to be quiet, be quiet, be respectful.
And that's something that's part of
And,
us because we have that connection.
Yes, that's
Now,
what it is.
Sister Leah, for the people who
Yes.
are watching this video and saw your life and heard about you, how you were seeking answers, you were seeking to find out about who you were and trace yourself back to the Bible. What will you tell them to encourage them?
Well, what would I tell them at this point? Oh, if they're searching also, or if they're just observing,
Right.
don't give up.
Yes.
Don't give in. This is a war. And you know that if America is in a war, they're watching out. They've got information already about the people on the other side, And these people, the hindrances that you encounter, take that also as proof that you're going in the right direction. Don't give up. Keep it in prayer. And like I said, this awakening came from the least expecting, the places I expected the least. I wound up getting information. Like when I spoke to that gentleman at the Creation Museum, I had no idea at that point that there were records. That they kept records of our original name and what they changed our names to, changed our ancestors. I mean,
right.
I want to praise the Lord. This is a very big deal to me that I was able to get this through to my father before he left, before the Lord took him home. It took a lot of work, it took a long time. I kept trying to tell him, kept showing him things that I found, but like you said, those things weren't easy to understand.
Right.
But when I had the book, I had gotten a book from Dr. Theron Williams. The Bible is Black History.
Yeah.
And I was trying to share with my father from what I read out of that. And then it finally occurred to me, oh, you bought him an iPad and he keeps the iPad in the box, nice and neat in the drawer. That's not going to work. I was like, but I got a book. This book is short. Let me give him this book. So I bought him the book and gave it to him, and he read it and he was elated from then on. That's the other part to share with somebody. The way that I think is the best way, the videos that are best for me might not work for somebody else that you're trying to get that through to. So you got to be open-minded to the various ways of people catching on, and because we all learn in different ways. Cool.
So when he saw that book and found out that the people in the Bible looked like you and I, and I know after years I've been told that there were other people.
Right. So, when you imagine someone in their 90s trying to change that mindset, I can imagine how difficult, it was difficult enough for me. I would find out, I would get excited, a little time would go by, and I went back to the old way I was thinking. And I had to that's the other advantage of the videos. I had to keep saving them and coming back and watching them over and over again, to snap myself back out of it. But I didn't even know that my dad had completed the book and was happy with it until I encountered, I don't know if I was talking to his wife or one of his friends, and they said, "Yeah, your dad's excited. He's been telling us that he's a Hebrew." I didn't know that was happening. So that's just awesome.
I love that. In fact, I had first a friend of mine told me that. I showed him. He was telling me the same thing you was talking about, and I was saying, no, the people in the Bible didn't look like that. I gave him the link to one of my videos. It's unveiling the truth about the ancient Israelites, and it was showing from Adam, and it gave biblical evidence, historical people who were cited, talking about how people look in those days in those regions from Canaan and all this stuff, and also it goes through the Bible showing who we were. As he said, I didn't know that. In fact, she was one of the members of the first church, our first ministry, and she got teary-eyed. She's like, I didn't know that.
Oh wow!
And she ended up doing her DNA and found out who she was. So that's
awesome.
So
it's so exciting.
You don't know what it takes, but as long as they don't give up, like you said, and they stick to it, and they keep praying, they keep seeking, they'll find the answer. Awesome. Well, Sister Lydia, thank you for sharing your story, sharing your testimony. I pray that anybody who's listening, that if what she said blesses you, please put it in the comments. Please like this video, share this video, let other people hear about this video. I hope that you find your history beyond 1619, because we're more than just 1619.
Awesome.
Yes. So we'll see you next time here on Berean Scholar.
What do you think about this topic? Remember to be a Berean Scholar, as it is written in the book of Acts 17 verses 11 to 12. Now the Bereans were more noble-minded than the Thessalonians, for they received the message with great eagerness and examined the scriptures every day to see if these teachings were true. It's time to deepen your understanding and see your reflection in the sacred pages. Please click subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay up to date with the Berean Scholar channel.